Hello, you are on the channel A Grown Woman's Perspective with Rochelle, and I am Rochelle. I want to say welcome. If it's your first time here, oh my goodness, welcome to my channel. If you are returning, I want to say welcome back. A quick reminder to like this video and go ahead and subscribe to my channel because I definitely want you to be in the know every single time I upload a new video. Today we are going to be talking about the second episode of Basketball Wives. And so if you watch this show, if you don't watch this show, maybe you used to watch this show and you just are not sure if you want to give this season another go because of all of the drama that has happened in the past. Well, listen, whatever you decide, I'm here to give my commentary on the show so that you can get this grown woman's perspective. All right, let's dig in to this episode. So we get a chance to see what went on between March and June of 2020. You know, we get to see all of the rules and the regulations that kind of came down from state to state because of COVID. Just how many deaths, how many, tragedies there were based on COVID in the month of March. And then they take us to May 2020 when we got to experience one of our most recent horrific deaths by the hands of police, and that was Mr. George Floyd. They show a lot about what happened with that. And then in June 2020, we got a chance to see the protests and how big of a deal the protests were around the country at that time. Yes, Black Lives Matter. They mattered then. They mattered before. They matter today. They're going to matter tomorrow. Black lives absolutely matter. And it's just a shame that we have to continue repeating this process, repeating this cycle over and over and over again in an attempt to fight for our rights. Then we fast forward to around October 2020, and we get to see Evelyn, but Leo is so big now. Leo is Evelyn's son with Carl, her ex-fiance, Carl, from the MLB, and he is just so big. He's such a cutie right now. And we get a chance to jump around because the ladies are everywhere. We have some living in LA, we have someone in New Jersey, we have someone in Sacramento, and we have ladies in Atlanta. And so we're jumping around from city to city, state to state. Oh, and let's not forget Texas because Shaunie is now a resident of Houston. Let's take this step by step in terms of what happened on this particular episode. So OG actually makes Kwame strip at the door. You know, a lot of people were doing this when COVID was really fresh and new. They were making their people strip at the door, spraying them down with Lysol and all those. Is anyone still doing that? I'm not sure. That's not something that we ever did in my household, but maybe some people are still out here doing that. Now, Jackie said that she is juicing like crazy. She wants to make sure she's flushing her system, keeping her family healthy. Hey, that's what it is, right? That's what it's really all about because like I said before, I think that COVID hits hardest to those people that are not as healthy as they should be. She said that throughout the entire pandemic, at least up to that point, that OG was the only basketball wife that she had heard from. That's kind of crazy to me. I mean, I guess that shows that maybe these ladies aren't really friends if they're not keeping up with each other through the pandemic. Jackie says she thinks that America is coming together, which is a good thing based on all of the tragedies, including the pandemic. But she said for some reason, the girls just can't seem to do that. And so she's hoping that at some point really soon, the girls will be able to come together. Now, of course, like I said, Shaunie's now in Houston. It's just her and her baby girl there. Everybody else is scattered, living in different places, in college and everything. So it's just her and her baby girl. And they seem like they might be a little bit bored and they might be a little bit sick of each other. So then we skip over to Malaysia. And she said, look, I love my kids. I love being with my kids, but I definitely need some adult interaction. How many of you guys were feeling that way? Like when we were in the heat of the pandemic and everyone was home and couldn't go out and you were having to have your teach your kids online and at home, How many felt like, I just need some adult interaction? That is how Malaysia was feeling. Kristen actually came over to the house. Kristen has moved to Atlanta as well, so she gets to be closer to Malaysia as well as Jennifer. We see that later. Kenzie is so big now. You guys remember when Kenzie was just a little thing? My goodness, time certainly does fly. Malaysia, she misses all the girls too, just like Jackie was saying. We hear that CeCe and Byron finally went ahead and got married. So congratulations to CeCe and Byron. I hope that everything is going well for them. Kristen is actually a little upset because she invited Malaysia to go to a protest, a march with her. And Malaysia didn't attend. It was, a George Floyd protest, and Malaysia says she just could not do it. She said, I was so close to doing it. I said yes. I got dressed. I got in my car. I began to drive, and I began to have so much anxiety that I just couldn't do it. And the reason that, she can't do it is because she still has a lot of, just like I said, anxiety over the fact that her brother was killed at the hands of the police. And so anything that deals with that type of situation and scenario, she just can't bring herself to do it. And you know what? That's really understandable. She says she's trying to get over it. And I want to take a pause right here, because a lot of times people think that when something tragic happens, when someone dies, or worse yet, gets murdered, they feel like they are supposed to get over it. And I just want to say, seriously, like, Malaysia probably will not see this video, but if she were to see it, I would say, sis, you don't get over it. You really don't. You just learn how to cope. You learn different methods to cope with the loss of a loved one. You don't have to get over it. You don't have to try to get over it. You don't have to act like you're over it. Just learn some coping mechanisms, and those are not going to just pop into your mind. You have to really seek counsel, work with someone who's a professional in that field, and just really get some help. There's nothing wrong with that. I know that in the Black community, a lot of times there's this stigma that if you seek professional help, that in some kind of way that equates to being crazy. But we know, guys, that is not true. Sometimes we just need a little bit of help to get over that hump. And so I would say, sis, king, queen, whoever you are that may be watching this, even if it's not Malaysia, know that it is okay for you to get help. Know that it is okay for you to continue to grieve. My goodness. But there is a process, and things should, get better, but it's only going to get better if you really, really seek help. Pushing it, sweeping it under the rug is not the answer. So that's my 2 cents on that. This is a grown woman's perspective. And so I always want to give you the real. This is not just about entertainment, although we review what comes to your screen. This is also about the seriousness of life, because life is serious, but it is also fragile. Next up, Evelyn's shoes. Oh my goodness. Just those 2 words. They need a room to themselves. And then her daughter points out that she also has 6 coffee machines. Okay, it's time to get rid of some things. Now, maybe she needs all those shoes. I don't know. But maybe it's time to begin to get rid of some things. Even if you can't part with your shoes, 6 coffee machines is probably not necessary, especially if you only have 1 kitchen. So maybe consider getting rid of some things, especially if you are one of those people. She moved. She actually moved into a new house. She said it's for security purposes. She wants to make sure she's feeling safe because of everything that's going on with her and OG and the colorism, racism issue. She's gotten a lot of death threats, and so she wants to make sure she's safe. She wants to make sure she's somewhere gated and that it's just more secure, which I understand. Good for her. Glad that she had the means to be able to do that. And we find out that her stepfather actually passed due to COVID early on. And Shanice tells her how proud she is of her, and she begins to get emotional. And I just want to say that Shanice is a beautiful girl. She looks very, very beautiful. She looks bright and vibrant, and we've gotten a chance to see her grow up over the years as well. She's a beauty. Now Kristen actually wants to introduce Malaysia to Monteria Robinson. Now Monteria lives here in Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta, the Atlanta area as well. And she's an activist. She actually lost her son, I want to say his name right, Jamarion Robinson. He was shot by Atlanta police 76 times. I just can't even wrap my mind around why anybody needs to be shot 76 times. No matter what's happening, why anyone needs to be shot 76 times, that does not compute to me. So unfortunate, so sad, so tragic. But you know, we're able to we have a knack for turning things into for the best, right? And so Monteria was able to meet with the ladies and really give Malaysia some tips and pointers on, you know, moving past some of her grief, but also being an asset to the community at large, and telling her some ways that she could really assist with the movement, and how sitting home and crying and being sad is not helping the movement. And so I really, really liked that. But this scene was really, really real. It was raw. It was emotional. And it was a big deal. I mean, because so many serious things happen in our communities, it's like we can't even just have a show anymore that's just for entertainment purposes. I mean, even on the Real Housewives of Atlanta, which I do not review this season just because it's kind of in the middle, they even had to cover the Breonna Taylor verdict as to whether the officers were going to be charged and things. And so you have these serious moments that must be covered, but at the same time, it almost changes the face of the show that we're watching, because you're kind of in and out from messy to funny to very, very, very serious. And so I guess that's just the times that we're in, and we just kind of have to go with the flow with that. And so that's kind of where that was. But we're thankful that we got a chance to meet Monteria and just hear a little bit of her story, and just share in a little bit of her grief with her. And hopefully, you know, everyone is just uplifting her and her family. So Evelyn is stressed. Everyone is stressed. You guys, you remember how we felt last year, like maybe about 9 months ago, when we were all cooped up in the house and we couldn't really go out and we couldn't interact with our friends and our families, and we felt stressed. And so we're seeing her feel stressed, and she's like, look, I have to get some work done on the house. I don't want to be here when it's being done. I just want to get a mansion for all of the ladies. We can come together. We can have some fun. We can laugh. We can eat. We can drink. We can argue, right? She didn't say that, but she wants everyone to get together and chill. Everyone's all over the country. She's like, I don't know if there's going to be another lockdown, and I would love for us to be able to get together before anything like that potentially happens. And so she calls all the girls, of course, with the exception of OG and Jennifer, because she doesn't get along with either one of those. But she even calls the new basketball wife, Liza, and invites her to the mansion. Everybody's excited. Even Feby is like, okay, even if Jackie's going to be there, as long as neither one of us gets too drunk, then I guess everything will be good. So hopefully they'll be able to get along, but I'm sure there'll be some fireworks and sparks at some point throughout this little trip that they have going on. So just like we got our first look at Kristen this week, we also got our first look at Jennifer this week. And we find out that just like Kristen moved to Atlanta, where Malaysia is, so did Jennifer. Jennifer's now in Atlanta. Kristen stops by her house to visit. Jen is telling her about when she had COVID back in March, April of 2020, how she had gone on a girls' trip and one of the girls had COVID, and then Jennifer ended up contracting it. And then she, of course, Kristen begins to ask her about that whole Range Rover ex-boyfriend situation. And so Jennifer gives her some little nuggets as far as what happened with that. She doesn't really say much, at least not on screen, but she does say that she's going to be doing a documentary to talk about exactly what happened in that situation. I mean, I guess we're nosy enough to want to see that, but that just doesn't seem documentary worthy to me. But I mean, if she puts it out, I'm sure we'll all watch it. I'm sure I'll review it here. If it's something that ever comes to pass, we'll see. And we find out from Jennifer as she's telling Kristen about the trip, because Kristen hadn't heard about it yet, that Jackie actually already invited Jennifer. But Jackie plans on getting a house too. So they're going to have the mansion that Evelyn's doing, but then Jackie's also going to get a house. I guess she wants to make sure her girls get to go, because otherwise, since it's Evelyn's trip, I guess OG and Jennifer probably wouldn't be invited, but Jackie wants them to come because they are her friends. And so she's going to get a house too. And then we see Jennifer begin to talk about some of the past incidents about, some people be throwing tables. And of course, she's talking about Malaysia. And then she calls Malaysia a B. She calls her out of her name. And Kristen tries to check her like, hold up, we're not going to be doing that. And Jennifer's like, oh, yes, we are. This is my house. And I say what I want to say. So that was a little strange. That was actually a little bit weird, because I'm like, oh, are we here on a friendly visit, or are we here throwing shade and snapping and saying, this is my house? Basically, you can get out if you don't like it. I don't know. Give me some comments and let me know what you think. How did you take this? I mean, Kristen seemed to take it okay, but it seemed like there was a lot of, sometimes Jennifer likes to break bad like this. And then later on, she'll say, oh, no, I didn't mean it like that. But she seems like she likes to break bad like this. So let's talk about this in the comments. This is something that we definitely want to discuss. I want to know your thoughts on Jennifer and the way she likes to snap, but then play the victim role later on, like she didn't mean to come across like that. What do you guys think? So we see Kwame and OG. They are having some guests over for dinner. These guests happen to be OG's family, her mom and her brothers. And they're talking about the lawsuit with Evelyn. And she's just giving them an update based on what her lawyer told her. She seems to be talking right again. You guys remember last week I said she had her Valley Girl talk on. She seems like she's talking back like her regular self. Like her regular self this week. So I'm happy to report on that. I'm not sure like what she was thinking on that first episode, but I'm so glad to hear her talking back like the old OG that we all know and love. Now we see Kristen and Evelyn jump on a call. Now, Kristen called Evelyn so that she could actually spill this tea about Jackie getting her own house and inviting OG and Jennifer. Now, here's the thing. I think this is really, really important. Now, again, this is a grown woman's perspective, and I've talked about this on previous videos. We definitely want to make sure everybody is on the same page. And I really think that Jackie, as a grown woman, should have let Evelyn know that she was going to get another house so that all of the girls could participate. This is not a message that Evelyn should have received through Kristen, which was through Jennifer. Like, that's too many layers of this, right? Everybody needs to be able to speak up and say their grown woman thing. If you're going to get another house, I personally think that that's cool, because now all of the girls can go and potentially some conversations can be had so that we can get things back on track. But nobody should be blindsided. See, that's the thing that Evelyn did when she invited Malaysia and Jackie. She blindsided them. We talked about that about some of our other shows as well. This blindside thing is childish and it's immature. So we want to make sure, in the case where some different things are happening from the original plan, that everybody is being straight up and communicating effectively. That is what grown women do. And so even though Kristen was calling Evelyn really to gossip, it is what it is, right? But I do agree that Evelyn should have known. Nobody should be blindsided in a situation like this, especially when you're away from home, away from the safety of your home. That's just not fair. So we're not going to do that this season, ladies. And unfortunately, now Malaysia, based on everything that's going on in this country right now, at that time and right now. Malaysia now has to have this difficult conversation with her children about everything that's happening. They say that they've been, hearing some things and seeing some things on TikTok, and she's trying to prepare them for potential interactions that they could have with the police, whether it's directly or indirectly. And she has to give them some tough scenarios, and she has to, ask them some tough questions. These conversations are always really, really hard when you have to have them with your kids, especially when you have to have them with your kids when they are young. And her kids are still young, they're not even teenagers yet. So these are tough conversations. There's so many layers to this conversation, and even some potential contradictions. Like, one of the things that she said was, if you see that someone does not like you because of the color of your skin, you should still love them because they're not better than you and you're not better than them. And then she still had to turn around and say, now that doesn't mean to allow someone to disrespect you. So, when you have to put all of that together, it could be very confusing to a young mind because it seems contradictory. Because on one hand, you want to be like, don't take nothing off of nobody, but you have to still talk to your children like they're children so that they can maintain some innocence. You can't talk to them like they're adults. And so you have the contradictions, you have the hard conversations, the hard topics. I mean, the parents are sad. The parents are confused, and they're scared for their children. And then the children, are confused as well. And they are scared because they can see and they can sense the fear in their parents. And I don't know, this is just a tough time that we live in, a tough conversation to have with your kids. Let's talk about this in the comments. Have you had to have these conversations with your kids yet? And what do you like? What are some unique things that you're telling your kids? Because I think that these comments could potentially help someone else who's reading them. As Black people in America, we definitely have to have tough conversations. I am a mom of 3 young men. And I have a husband. And I mean, when you have all of these Black men in your life, you don't have any it's fear all the time. It's worry all the time, but you don't want to live your life like that. And so you have to have those tough conversations, and you have to reiterate things because you really know that it is inevitable that those interactions with the police are going to happen at some point. They don't always have to be negative. They don't always have to be bad, but they're going to happen. And listen, none of us want to see those blue lights flashing behind us. And so what are you doing? Let's talk about this in the comments. This is a very, very important topic. And so even though, like I said, this is entertainment, there is still a serious part to this, because these are real life things that are happening to us on a daily basis. And on a happy note, we got a chance to see Kristen in her confessional. And I just want to say that Kristen looks absolutely beautiful. She is shining and glowing, and she's just a beautiful, beautiful woman. And I wanted to give her kudos on her beauty this week. And so, guys, that is it for my commentary of episode number 2 of Basketball Wives. I want to know your thoughts on the episode. I want to know, was there anything of significance that I talked about or didn't talk about? Let's talk about it in the comments. I want to remind you one more time to like this video, and subscribe to this channel. Turn on your notification bell button as well. Why? Because I want you to be notified every single time I come and do a new video, because we're going to be discussing some good content over here. We're talking about what hits your screen. Yes, we are. On a weekly basis. Yes, we are. And I just am so happy that you're going to be here with me. Cannot wait to see you on the next video about whatever show comes up next. I'll see you guys later. Bye.